we now do have a session which is indeed on the topic of wine economics. And the first presentation, Underpricing and Perceived Scarcity, is by Jill McCluskey, Regent Professor and Director of the School of Economic Sciences at Washington State University. Jill.
Well, thank you very much. I'm so happy to be here. Thanks to Jali for organizing this, and to Carl Storchman. So I first got this idea about underpricing and perceived scarcity actually from when Carl showed me some cult wineries in Walla Walla, Washington, near me. And it was when Orly Ashenfelter was visiting, and we visited Cayuse, and I found out that they had a 12-year-long waiting list to be able to buy the wine. And so I thought, why would they do that if you can buy it on the secondary market? And so that made me think about, how does that make sense? How can I explain this with economics? So what I'm thinking about is why for these really high-end cult wines, why would the price that you charge be underneath the market equilibrium here? And so supply is where the sellers are willing to supply more as the price go up, and demand, of course, goes down. And sometimes you might have this price that's below, and then so there will be excess demand here. And so the economic literature offers lots of explanations for it. It might be rent control or price ceiling, or it could be predatory pricing to gain market power. It could be an introductory offer, so that we want you to try it, so you might like it. It might be a multi-product monopoly, so that you might want someone to, if you're jointly maximizing, you might, and things are complementary, you might want to underprice one so that people will buy more of the other one. Or it could be something that's tied. So, like, for example, ink, expensive ink, and you might underprice the printer, for example. But in this paper, we offer a new explanation, and so we're thinking about underpricing to generate excess demand. And so if the price is below the market price in a capacity constraint firm, that wineries are, with their vineyards, you can only produce so much, you can generate excess demand, and this can create the perception of scarcity. And so we'll call this scarcity pricing. And when I thought about this, it's actually been used in the energy economics literature with a different meaning, and it refers to when there's a higher price during times of extreme stress. So in a really hot summer and everyone wants to use air conditioning, you might charge a higher price. But in the short term, this underpricing in wine allows the secondary market to capture the foregone profits. And if underpricing causes demand to increase in future periods, it can increase the cumulative profits over time. And so this could happen in other markets. It could be season ticket holders for professional sports, some popular restaurants, and cult wines, of course, with long waiting lists on the allocation, and also special bourbon whiskeys. This example of Pappy Van Winkle's, they don't have a waiting list, but they have a lottery. And so it's really interesting that, for example, in Oregon, and there was a scandal recently in Oregon, and you can read about that, but the problem, you have to enter a lottery, and the chance of winning the right to buy one of the bottles is 1 in over 4,000, and they sell for just under $300, and in the secondary market it can be about $5,000. There's a capacity constraint, and it's because of the aging. So you have to have made it 23 years ago, and so that's a hard capacity constraint. And there was a recent economics article that was looking at this market but not thinking about the underpricing, and it says they write that bourbon aficionados must turn to the secondary market to obtain coveted products because producers are reluctant, for whatever reason, to significantly raise retail prices, leading to shortages of specific products. So that's kind of what I'm thinking about here. Why would they do that? There's some other literature on, and for example, Gary Becker, Nobel laureate, looks at it in restaurants, and he's just looking at how demand for some goods might depend on the demands for others, and so with that you can get upward sloping, you can get an upward sloping demand curve in part of the domain. But our research is different from this because we're looking at profit maximizing firms in an infinite period setting, so in the infinite future. You can think about prices playing the role of an investment, and so a firm might charge a lower price to increase the current quantity sold, which can affect future periods with greater demand or lower cost. And so these are usually with, in the first case for greater demand, if you increase the quantity sold in the current period, it can result in higher future demand because of network externalities or switching costs. And in the second place, you can lower costs by learning by doing. So if you make more, then you can learn and reduce your costs in the future. Our work is different from this because it's focused on, this work is focused on increasing quantity sold in the current period, and we're thinking about reducing quantity or having less quantity sold. And there are no externalities on our market, and rather the excess demand is created from the underpricing. It results in the perception of perceived scarcity, which shifts demand. And so with this, there has to be what we need. There has to be, for underpricing to create the perception of scarcity, it can only be optimal if the product is different, and entry of firms producing into the product is restricted, and there's a capacity constraint. So that fits wine, that the vineyard is limited in the size. No one else can produce from that vineyard, and it has to be, and it's different from other products. If it's homogeneous and anyone can supply it, you can't create scarcity without collusion, and preferences for the product will be enhanced if it's perceived to be of high quality, because why would you care? Why would you sign up for something of low quality? And then finally, if it's perceived for low quality, it wouldn't be special enough to shift demand. So to our knowledge, this is the first paper that is looking at the rationality of using pricing strategies to instigate persistent excess demand in a dynamic setting over multiple periods. And so we asked the questions, how does setting prices lower than the market clearing levels affect the firm's profits over time? And then is there empirical evidence to support that firm's underpriced to create excess demand? So we're looking at a multi-period optimization framework to analyze the case study of cult wines. And so economists often use math to try to tell a story. And so I'll just gloss over this pretty quickly. I won't spend a lot of time on this, but the firm has a product that is differentiated in terms of geographic location, reputation, and other dimensions. They have a marginal cost. And I'll talk about a 2-period example just to show you, and I'll show you graphically. So here's the first period, and we see that this is the capacity constraint, how much the vineyard can produce. And so even if the price goes up, you can't produce more than that. So it's vertical in at that stage. And so if you were to produce where marginal revenue equals marginal cost, the profit maximizing price would be P pi. But if we only charge this lower price, then consumers would demand all the way out here. And so the difference between these two is the excess quantity demanded. And so what we're arguing is that when you have that excess demand, it can make demand shift outwards. And so even if you raise the price, it can still be below. So, but I'll show you some more. Just quickly, we have a price gap and an excess quantity demanded. And so a key assumption is that if the product is unavailable, then it increases demand. And so I won't have time to completely go through this, but I can show. I can show that we can show that for sufficiently high values of the discount rate and future equilibrium price, there exists a scarcity pricing strategy that's better to the stationary strategy of just the profit maximizing price for the single period. So then our empirical application is that we're looking at the cult wine markets. And so we can show that now we want to look at these, and we're considering cult wines. And so a consumer can only buy a cult wine if they're on the allocation list or on the secondary market. And getting on the allocation list often involves multiple waiting periods. And so we evaluate how the retail market price of a bottle of wine in period T is affected by the market price, the price difference in the price gap or the price difference in the period before that. And so release prices are the release prices that are less than the stationary market price are consistent with this scarcity pricing strategy. And so we'll use a longitudinal data set that has information on the annual release prices of wine by winemakers. And it goes from 2016 to 2020, and so based on the availability of market prices. And so we're considering Napa, Sonoma, and Walla Walla. And the average retail price is based. The secondary market is from Wine Searcher, and so we have other information, and it's all taken from websites. And so what we're doing in this is that the price gap is equal to the average secondary market price minus the release price, and then we scale it by the release price. So we don't want to have huge outliers. And so what an example of this would be, so Cayuse might be for $369 on the average secondary market price. The release price might be $299, and then we can see that the price gap is 23%. And so here's our summary statistics. Here's how we calculate it, and then here's the results. So this is with firm fixed effects only. We can see that we're estimating these effects on the secondary market price, which we're considering the equilibrium price. And we see that the larger the price gap in the previous year, the higher the market price is, that secondary market price. And so for all the special specifications, it's positive and significant. We also looked at it for adding both firm and time fixed effects, and this is just probably another measure of robustness, that it's positive and significant across all of those. So the magnitudes are really stable. They measure from 0.0021 to 0.0025 across both models. It's consistent, they suggest that a 1% increase in the price gap of the previous year is associated with a 0.21 to 0.26% increase in the average secondary market price of a bottle of wine. And this is consistent with the scarcity pricing model. And so we also have results on the usual results that one would find with estimating market prices. So in conclusion, we're offering an economic rationale why firms might set their prices below the static single period level, and it can, because they want to create excess demand, which can result in a perception of scarcity. If that shifts the demand over time, it can it can be profit maximizing to underprice. And so we find that with cult wines, the larger the difference between the secondary market price and the release price in the previous period, the higher the secondary market price for the same wine is in the subsequent period. And since the supply is vertical, a higher price means that there's a shift in demand.